Hi again. Project this time is a plate or platter. Not sure whether it qualifies as a plate or a platter, depending on its size I suppose. A couple of years ago I made this one in almond wood, nearly 8 inches diameter. I've got a piece of olive this time, but nowhere near that diameter. Once I've trimmed it down, it's going to come out to about 5 1/4 inches diameter, I should think. But the first thing to do is to get the blank trimmed up to some sort of size. It's a nice piece, but there's several crack lines in it on here, but I think by going into the middle area of the log I can avoid that and still keep a fair amount of size. So first thing to do is to stick it on. I haven't got a bandsaw, but stick it onto the chop saw and take off the sides and perhaps the corners, just to make it a bit easier when I start turning it. Let's get the faceplate fixed to the workpiece. I've already marked it up to find out the centre. Put some screws in there, 4 screws on this faceplate. Olive isn't is a hardwood, but it is very soft to machine. It's a dense wood, I think is probably the best way of describing it. So the screws go in nice and easily, and fingers crossed come out nice and easily. So let's get it on the lathe and see where we go from there. It's a little out of balance weight wise, so I've set it on the second highest speed setting, or second lowest speed setting. The bottom I believe is around 500 and the top is around 3000 I think, so it's somewhere in between that. On the second one it's still vibrating a bit, but it's at least something I can work with. So excuse the noise, but here goes turning off the first bit. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of cracking here. Hope to be able to machine down below that so that we end up in some more solid wood. There's some very nice solid wood there, and as you can see, the colour and the grain is beautiful on olive. One of the reasons I like the wood so much. So I can put the speed up a bit now that we've got down below sort of vibration level, and it helps with the cutting of the wood. I've only moved it up one setting on the speed. It's about mid-range, and it's what I tend to use most for most of my work. It seems to be suitable for most of the timbers and sizes that I can work with. As you will have noticed, it doesn't take much to stop this lathe. It's a bit underpowered, but apart from that, on the some years ago it got flooded. It was under water up to just below the spindle height, so the capacitor got completely wetted. When I got it running again, I found that I could keep it running, but the capacitors failed, so it's a start and run capacitor. I've tried replacing it, but I can't seem to find one the right size that fits inside this little housing on the back of the lathe here. So hence I have to spin start it. When I first press the start button, I have to give it a little flip to start it, and under pressure it does tend to stop sometimes, so I just have to take it guts a little bit lighter than I might otherwise have done. Still quite a few cracks there, so I think I might have to bring out the super glue bottle just to hold those cracks off a bit, but I'm still got more meat that I can take off there to work away in towards the more towards the heartwood than this sapwood, and this is sapwood that tends to crack mostly. It's still fairly wet. I can feel the dampness in the wood itself, although I thought it was quite dry. It's dry on the very outsides, and it's only a firewood log originally, bought from a firewood yard. So obviously over here in Spain the sun's up to sort of 40 odd degrees in the summer. This has been sitting around on a log pile during those summer months, so it has dried out quite a bit on the outsides and quite quickly, hence all the cracking. But as we get towards the centre, the cracking's not so severe, so I think I may be able to patch that up with a bit of super glue to hold it all together before I get to the end of it. So I think that's what I'll do for my next part of the thing, is just put some super glue in there just to hold it all together. Right, I've given it a good dose in with the super glue. I'll leave that overnight, I think, to let it all set, and then maybe just top it up with some super glue that I've mixed some shavings with. Just see how we go with that. It does work on olive quite well, and with the dust it seems to blend quite well for a fix, fix that looks quite good. Anyway, we'll leave that overnight and see how we go from there. Right, it's had overnight now with some super glue on the worst of the cracks. What I'll do is carry on the machining a little bit longer and see how deep those cracks go, and whether I need to fill them with some sawdust and super glue, and we'll see how we go from there. As I believe I've mentioned, I'm making a plate, albeit a small one, it's only about 5.5 inches diameter. And the one I made before, although it was much bigger, the mistake I made on it, if you look at a dining plate in ceramics, you have the angle of the edge of the plate, then a slightly rounded bit, and then the foot that the plate sits on should be only a very small, almost like a small bead there, with the centre of it flat. This one I obviously made, in my ignorance, made it with a much bigger foot. So what I want to do with this one is put a spigot on the centre, taking it out to that small beaded foot, and then so at the second side I can hold it on that spigot on the tenon to do the other side of the plate, and then finally turn it round, hold it in a jam chuck and take off the spigot tenon, and so I end up with the flat on the inside. But that's my plan anyway. One of the things, a little bit of advice I picked up from Pete Ravenscroft of Pete from Twisted Trees, was that when you look at something you're making in wood, if it's a usable item like this, a plate or a jug or anything like that, it's a good idea to look at the ceramic version of these things on YouTube or whatever, on Google, because the ceramic versions often give you a much better idea of what to use as a design for the wood version. And that's what I was looking at when I looked at the plates. You can see that there is that little lip on there to act as a foot. Another idea from Pete Ravenscroft, cut yourself a tenon and a mortise tool, so you get your sizes right. So we're almost down to the size that I need for a tenon. I cut this out of an old piece of number plate, which is easy scratched, so you can see both sides of it. So if I take that down a little bit further, that'll be the right size for holding on my Nova chuck, and it'll give me I get some flexibility one way or the other, but it's a good idea anyway from Pete. The first time I've had a chance to use my sanding arbors that I made on my last video. This is the first time I've ever used them, so if anything goes wrong it's because of lack of practice. But this is a bit of the sanding now, so I won't spend too long on it. sealer on there for now, just on the bits that I might not be able to reach properly later on. Finally, take it off and remove the faceplate. Right, it's a good hold on there, so let's get some material taken off the front. Just checking the depth of the thing so I don't go and cut it right through. Right, we've got about 1/4 of an inch there still, and that's to the base of the inside of that recess. So I can still go down to about 4 mil, something like that. Still plenty of meat there. I think that's probably about as far as I'm going to take it. Maybe just a slight skim across there just to clean it up with the air scraper. Nice and flat now. It's just a little radius coming out there to a slight angle on the very edge. We've got about 4mm there, and the measurement of the base was about 4mm. So now I'm going to go back to me using my homemade sanders and machine sand out the centre of it. Starting with 80 grit. My jam chuck holding the plate in the reverse side at the moment, so let's just see if it all holds up. Well, it's held up to a degree. It's got me down to just a little nub in the centre there. I can probably sand it out, and then I'll just have to hand polish the rest of it, because I don't think it's going to hold in there for sanding. It's not too bad. It's got rid of the nub in the centre, little dimple there where I had my centre, but I think with a bit of Versailles sealer on that and a bit of hand polishing with some wax, it won't look too bad. The whole thing's come out quite well as far as I'm concerned. The sanding arbors seem to be doing the trick. And that's the little plate. It's not quite as shiny as I would have liked it to have been, and I don't know if that super glue is taken in that crack. There's a bit of paper and a bit of wax in the crack, so yeah, not too bad. I'm reasonably pleased with that. Thanks for watching. Hope it's been informative, hope it's been useful to you. Thank you for watching, and like if you like it.